I have before me the 2023 Asus ROG Flow X16. Now there's a slight difference between the 2022 and the 2023 from the top cover. You can see they changed the badge slightly. It had the bar badge last year's model, and this year's model has this kind of triangular badge on the top cover. So that's honestly the big changes from the design of the laptop. Everything else is gonna be some component changes. Now, quickly though, if you're new to this model, I'll go over the build quality and functionality, giving you some of my thoughts on the ROG Flow X16. Love this model. I think the 13 is absolutely fantastic as well. If you're looking for a thin and light and more compact on-the-go laptop. However, if you want the 16-inch panel, then this is going to be a fantastic buy for you. Now, first and foremost, taking a look at the bottom cover of the laptop, you can see it's assembled very well. You have the bottom cover fitting snug into the side panel, create a nice flush edge here. So nothing catchy on this area. As we move around, it rounds out around the back, so that looks great as well. And then it comes down and the vent comes across the back panel of the laptop. Then of course you have two vents on the back edges and then one on the center where the heat pipes come through. So the design is very good, and they use this really nice magnesium alloy material, same as the 2022 model. Now, in regards to the ports, we have our power adapter, HDMI, USB Type-C, and then of course the XG mobile connector, which does pop off. Now, the new model of the X13 actually has it to where it like pivots on a little piece of rubber that holds it in place. So you're gonna wanna keep a hold of this. It's pretty easy to lose. I know a lot of people have said they've lost these, and I've actually lost one as well. But hidden behind there is the XG mobile port as well as a USB Type-C. We also have a headphone jack on this side of the laptop. Now, flipping it over, we have our micro SD card reader, great for expanding your storage on the go. You don't have to pull the bottom cover off of the laptop. Just go ahead, plug a micro SD card in there, and you've expanded your storage if you're out on a shoot. Fantastic feature. Then we have two USB Type-A's. Now, going ahead and taking a look at the open and close of this laptop, you can see it opens and closes easily with one hand, and it goes all the way into a tablet mode, or the stand mode. So really great for previewing the projects you've been working on, or just kicking back and watching some show at the end of the day. Also, this is a touchscreen laptop, so it makes for a fantastic portable drawing device. I'm gonna grab a pen and kind of show you how that works. Now, the touchscreen is great because while in tablet mode, or even just while you have the laptop normally set up, you can spread your fingers to zoom in and out. So if you're working on any digital art, it's really nice. You can move around and navigate very easily. Of course, I have my pen here. As you see, as I draw lightly on the screen, it has a nice thin line, and then as I push harder, you can put that thicker line onto your design or your piece of art you're working on. So the touch sensitivity of the pen is great. And this is the ASUS Pen 2.0. That pen works for this device. Just keep that in mind if you're looking for a right pen for the X16. Most X16s will not come with a pen unless you get some sort of bundle. So keep that in mind. This does not come with the laptop. You'll have to order this separately. Now, the weight and thickness of this laptop is fantastic for a 16-inch laptop. It's just under 5 pounds and well under 1 inch thick. So it's great, portable, and the magnesium alloy chassis is nice and light, making it very on-the-go friendly. Now, taking a look at the interior of the laptop, we have a QHD display at 240 Hz refresh rate. Now, this is the RTX 4060 version, so you do get it with the more affordable model. Now, in this video, I'll be showing you benchmarks for the RTX 4060 and the RTX 4070, so keep an eye out for later in the video. And if you're curious about the pricing differences between those two models, you can head down in the description below and click those links. If you do make a purchase, I'll get a small commission, but at no extra cost to you. Of course, that's what keeps this channel alive and the helpful content coming your way. Looking at the display, we have 482 nits of screen brightness at 100% sRGB, 89% Adobe RGB, and 99% DCI-P3, all at a delta E of 0.97. Now, the screen brightness is good. The battery life is great as well. Speaking of the screen, at 20% screen brightness on Eco mode, Windows battery saver mode, as well as iGPU mode, and the screen set to 60 Hz refresh rate, I was able to accomplish 9 hours and 36 minutes for passmark productivity, 9 hours and 13 minutes for streaming video playback, 6 hours and 12 minutes for Photoshop, and 4 hours and 22 minutes for video editing. So definitely some great battery life coming out of this i9 processor. I was concerned moving from the Ryzen processor to the Intel processor that we'd see a large dip in battery life. We did see battery life drop a little bit, but it still has a good amount of battery life. Last year's Ryzen version of this laptop had about 10 hours for the streaming video playback and passmark productivity, so you lost about an hour by them choosing to go with Intel this year. And I'm pretty sure that had a lot to do with the supply chain and the production of Ryzen processors being behind and Intel being able to produce the chips and get them in the computers faster this year. I really don't think it was necessarily like a choice to go towards Intel. I think it was just like supply and demand. Now taking a look at the keyboard and the trackpad, I'm gonna pull up last year's model just so you can see that there is no difference between last year's model and this year's model. Same trackpad, same basic layout. Now you can see that the new model is slightly darker. They've chosen to go with a darker kind of matte black finish instead of this more silver finish. But overall, you're gonna see the same size trackpad for the device. So that's really good to know that they've kept the same great design. Now I like the trackpad and the keyboard on this laptop. It has a nice medium key press, quiet, really nice to the touch. Plastic keycaps, they're not a soft touch material, they're more of a hardened plastic material. Then we also have upward facing speakers here. I'll give you a sample of those in just a minute. Now checking out the trackpad, we have a nice large glass trackpad, quiet to the click, secured nicely to the chassis. Here's an audio sample of me using both the keyboard and the trackpad so you can hear what it sounds like. And of course, as promised, here's a sample of the speaker audio so you can hear what that sounds like. And lastly, there is a webcam along the top bezel of the screen, and here's the sample so you can see the webcam. This is the webcam on the Asus ROG Flow X16, and a little sample of the audio for you as well. Now, I would say this is either something you'll love or something you'll hate, and that's the fact that it is a glossy screen. I prefer matte screens as a whole, especially if you're somebody who's working in an environment that has a lot of overhead lights, and you don't want those like reflecting into your vision. You gotta kind of get it just right. Or if you work outside a lot, glossy screens obviously tend to reflect a lot more. So I prefer matte, but it's a great panel, bright, color accurate, and very sharp. Now regarding the upgrade path, if we're gonna turn it over and open up the bottom cover, you will find 2 upgradable RAM slots, as well as 2 upgradable SSD slots. One comes occupied, one comes unoccupied. Now, whether you get the RTX 4070 or the RTX 4060 will determine the stock RAM that it comes with. According to the listing that is available right now on bestbuy.com, the RTX 4070 comes with 32 gigs of RAM, the RTX 4060 comes with 16 gigs of RAM. So just keep that in mind. By getting the more expensive model, you're not only getting a better GPU, but you're also getting more RAM from the factory. However, if you like the 4060, you like the price point, you can always upgrade the RAM later, which is a great option for this laptop. Without any more delay, let's go ahead and get into the benchmarks. Now remember, we have both models here on the charts, but the 4060 has 16 gigs of RAM, the 4070 has 32 gigs of RAM, and they both have the i9-13900H processor. So looking at Geekbench single core, multi-core, as well as Cinebench R23 single core and multi-core, you can see they're neck and neck. With that same processor, you might see a little bit of better performance out of one of the laptops, just depending on how the averages ended up when running multiple tests of each benchmark. But as you can see, very neck and neck for simulated benchmarks. Now, as we move on to the real world benchmarks, which is where I like to really sit and talk about the actual performance differences, you can see that Photoshop scores a 1,143 from the RTX 4070 with the 32 gigs of RAM, I might add, versus the RTX 4060 with 1,091. So still a great laptop coming from the base model, still great performance. If you want to save a little bit of money, you'll be great in Photoshop. Now taking a look at After Effects, I'm going to say the same thing, that even if you get the RTX 4060, you still got a lot of performance. You're only getting about an extra 60 points inside of After Effects, and that will create an overall smoother experience, especially that you have more RAM with the RTX 4070 version. If these were paired more neck and neck with the RAM, I would say it wouldn't make as big of a difference, but because the 4060 has 16 gigs of RAM, it definitely will have a little bit of lagginess on some of the more complicated After Effects tasks. So punch for punch, if you're a big After Effects user, going for that more powerful model will be an advantage to you. Now, taking a look at Blender Classroom, this is where we saw quite a big difference. We saw an 887 out of the RTX 4060. That 4070 really bumps. It really has a good performance uptick, a 1072 for Blender Classroom. So definitely makes a difference if you're using Blender. Autodesk 3ds Max, Autodesk Maya, and PTC Creo are all seeing a strong advantage from the 4070 as well. No really debate there. I mean, it's totally understood that the 4070 is really the prime GPU from 2023. It hits a nice happy medium between like something like a 4090 all the way down to the 4050. The best bang for buck GPU this year is the 4070 by far. However, if we're going into SolidWorks, it really doesn't make that big of a difference. So if you're a big SolidWorks user and you want to get the X16, you could go ahead and save some money by not getting the 4070. Go ahead, get the 4060, and then I would upgrade the RAM to 32 gigs to create a better overall performance of the laptop. That would be my bet in actually a lot of respects. All right, now moving on to the drop frames inside of Premiere Pro, you can see the 4060 dropped 0 in BRAW, but 1,581 in red footage. Now you move on to the 4070, still 0 in BRAW, and then we just have 89 drop frames in red footage. Now, in my opinion, this actually has a lot to do with not only the GPU, but also the fact that we have 32 gigs of RAM versus 16 gigs of RAM. So if you were to upgrade the 4060 to 32 gigs of RAM, you're gonna see about the same amount of drop frames because Premiere Pro loves RAM. So you can save some money and get overall better performance with more RAM with the 4060. Just keep that in mind. However, if you're gonna get the 4070, upgrade it to 64 gigs of RAM. Then you'll have a real powerhouse in your hands. All right, the next thing we're taking a look at is export times. And I must say the 4060 did not disappoint for export times. You can see that they're basically neck and neck for the export of 4K. We take a 9-minute 4K clip, put it into Premiere Pro, export out at full quality 4K settings. Same technique for the 6K footage, and you can see that we get a bit of an advantage by the 32 gigs of RAM and the RTX 4070 for the 6K export. We about have a minute and a half of improvement for the export time out of Premiere Pro. Just keep that in mind. Now, moving down the line to DaVinci Resolve, neck and neck there as well. This is one of the best performers I've seen this year for DaVinci Resolve. I was excited to see the i9 and the NVIDIA GPUs working very well together in these results. Now, punch for punch, if I was gonna buy this laptop personally, because I'm not a big 3D modeling guru, I would go 4060 and upgrade it to 32 gigs of RAM. To me, that would be the best bang for buck, providing the best value to performance for the model. Love this build quality. Battery life is great. Trackpad's nice and large. Beautiful display. This is definitely one of the top picks for me this year. Click the links in the description below if you want to check the live pricing or make a purchase, or click or tap the screen here for more videos to help you with your buying decision. I'll see you in the next one.